Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the UES Liberty, watching the stars blur past through the main viewing screen. The ship hummed quietly around him as it traveled through space at impossible speeds. 3 months into their mission to explore the outer systems, everything had been going perfectly. Too perfectly, Jake thought to himself. "Captain, we're getting some strange readings from the jump drive," called out Chief Engineer Danny Rodriguez from his station near the back of the bridge. His voice carried a note of concern that made Jake's stomach tighten. "What kind of strange readings, Danny?" Jake asked, turning to face his chief engineer. Danny Rodriguez had been working on starship engines for 15 years, and Jake had never heard that tone in his voice before. "The quantum field is fluctuating in ways I've never seen before. The readings are all over the place. I think we might have a problem with the drive core," Danny replied, his fingers dancing across his control panel as he tried to make sense of the data. Commander Lisa Hayes, Jake's second-in-command, looked up from her own station. "How big of a problem are we talking about, Danny?" she asked. Lisa had been with Jake for 5 years, serving on 3 different ships together. She knew how to read between the lines when engineers started talking about problems. "Big enough that I think we should drop out of jump space right now and take a look," Danny said, already beginning the shutdown sequence. "I don't want to risk a core breach while we're in hyperspace." Jake nodded and turned to his navigation officer. "Pete, where are we right now?" Lieutenant Pete Williams checked his instruments. "We're about 2 light years from the Tau Ceti system, sir. If we drop out now, we'll be in empty space." "Do it," Jake ordered. "Bring us back to normal space." The Liberty shuddered slightly as it dropped out of hyperspace. The stars stopped moving and returned to their normal, steady points of light. But something was wrong. Very wrong. "Captain," said Lieutenant Sarah Kim from the sensor station, her voice tight with surprise. "We're not alone out here." Jake felt his heart skip a beat. "What do you mean, not alone?" "I'm reading multiple contacts. Big ones. They're surrounding us," Sarah replied, her hands working quickly over her controls. 7 ships, all much larger than us. They're moving into attack formation. On the main screen, the stars were suddenly blocked out by massive dark shapes. As the Liberty's sensors adjusted, the shapes resolved into enormous warships unlike anything humans had ever built. They were sleek and deadly looking, with hull designs that seemed to flow like water frozen in time. "My God," whispered Dr. Amy Carter from her science station. As the ship's xenobiologist, Amy had spent her entire career dreaming about this moment. First contact with alien life. But she had always imagined it happening under better circumstances. "Are they trying to communicate with us?" Jake asked, trying to keep his voice steady. He had trained for this possibility, but actually facing unknown alien ships was different from any simulation. "I'm not picking up any standard communication signals," replied Communications Officer Tony Garcia. "But they're definitely scanning us. I can feel their sensors running over our hull." "Captain," Lisa said quietly, "what are our orders if we encountered hostile alien forces?" Jake remembered the briefing documents he had read before leaving Earth. The official policy was to attempt peaceful contact, but defend the ship if necessary. The problem was that these alien ships were so much larger than the Liberty. If they wanted to destroy the human ship, there probably wasn't much Jake and his crew could do to stop them. "We try to talk first," Jake decided. "Tony, open a channel on all frequencies, broadcast in every major Earth language we have recorded." Tony nodded and began working. After a moment, he gave Jake a thumbs up. "Channel open, sir." Jake took a deep breath. This was it, the moment that would change human history forever. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earthship Liberty. We come in peace and wish to establish friendly contact with your people." For several long minutes there was no response. The alien ships continued to hold their positions around the Liberty, their weapons clearly visible but not yet firing. Jake was beginning to think they wouldn't answer when Tony suddenly looked up from his station. "Captain, we're getting a response. It's coming through on our main communications channel, but the language is completely unknown. The computer is trying to run translation protocols." "Put it through the speakers," Jake ordered. A series of clicks, whistles, and what sounded like electronic music filled the bridge. It was clearly language of some kind, but unlike anything any human had ever heard. The computer says it needs more data to attempt a translation, Tony reported. Keep recording everything, Jake told him. Amy, are you getting readings on the alien ships? Dr. Carter was practically vibrating with excitement despite the danger they were in. Yes, sir. The ships appear to be powered by some kind of fusion technology, but it's far more advanced than anything we have. Their hulls are made of materials I can't identify from these readings. And Captain, the life signs I'm detecting suggest the beings aboard those ships are not human. That's kind of the point, Amy, Lisa said dryly. Before anyone could respond, the alien transmission changed. The musical tones became sharper, more aggressive. Even without understanding the language, the meaning was clear. These aliens were not happy about something. Captain, Sarah called out from sensors. The alien ships are powering up their weapons. All 7 ships have weapon locks on us. Jake felt sweat begin to form on his forehead. The Liberty was an exploration ship, not a warship. They had defensive shields and a few small weapons, but nothing that could stand up to 7 alien battleships. Tony, keep broadcasting our peaceful intentions, Jake ordered. Tell them we mean no harm and that we're explorers, not soldiers. Sir, interrupted Pete from navigation. I'm plotting emergency jump coordinates back toward Earth space. If things go bad, I can have us out of here in 30 seconds. Stand by on that, Jake replied. Running away might save his ship and crew, but it would also tell these aliens exactly where Earth was located. If they were hostile, leading them back to humanity's home system could doom billions of people. The bridge fell silent except for the sound of Tony broadcasting human languages, and the alien response growing more aggressive by the minute. Everyone was waiting to see if they would live through the next few minutes. Suddenly, Dr. Carter looked up from her station with wide eyes. Captain, I think I understand what's happening. The alien transmissions include mathematical sequences and star charts. I think they're trying to figure out where we came from. Are they succeeding? Jake asked. The math they're using is incredibly advanced, but yes, I think they're going to figure out that we came from the Sol system very soon. Jake made his decision. Danny, how long until you can get the jump drive back online? Give me 10 minutes. Captain, maybe 5 if I push it. Push it, Jake ordered. Pete, set course for Earth space, but not directly to Earth. Take us to the outer system first. Captain, Lisa said quietly. If we run now, these aliens might follow us home. If we stay here, they might destroy us and then go looking for our home anyway, Jake replied. At least if we make it back to Earth space, we can warn everyone. What's coming? The next few minutes passed like hours. Danny worked frantically to bring the jump drive back online while the alien ships continued to hold their positions. Their weapon locks never wavered, but they didn't fire either. It was as if they were waiting for something. Drive is ready, Captain, Danny finally announced. Do it, Jake ordered. The Liberty jumped back into hyperspace, leaving the alien ships behind. But Jake knew this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and their new neighbors didn't seem very friendly. As the ship raced back toward Earth, Jake began composing his report to Starfleet Command. How do you tell your superiors that you've just made first contact with a hostile alien civilization? How do you explain that humanity's greatest dream had just become its worst nightmare? The quiet arrival was over. What came next would change everything. The emergency alarm echoed through the halls of Nexus Prime, the massive space station that served as the center of galactic government. Ambassador Veltar of the Zephyrians floated quickly through the corridors, his crystal body glowing with urgent blue light. In 3,000 years of galactic peace, the Emergency Council had only been called 12 times. This made 13. The council chamber was already filling with representatives from the 7 major species when Veltar arrived. The Corvan delegation sat in their heavy armor, looking annoyed at being called away from their military exercises. The Helix Consortium members were checking their profit calculations on small devices. The Elderkin representative sat perfectly still, as he had for the past century. The collective speaker twitched occasionally as new thoughts came from the Yadur hive mind. The luminary delegate glowed softly with peaceful energy. The Vorthak calculator was already running probability numbers on his computing device. The session will begin, announced the station's computer in 7 different languages. Ancient Keeper Morden of the Elderkin spoke first, his voice slow and careful. A new species has entered our space. They call themselves humans. They come from a system they name Sol, third planet, which they call Earth. War Prime Thexkar of the Corvins leaned forward in his seat. I encountered them personally. Their ship was small and primitive. Their weapons were basic. They posed no threat to the established order. Yet they achieved faster than light travel, noted Prime Calculator Zexon of the Vorthak. My analysis suggests they developed this technology independently. This is unusual for such a primitive species. Ambassador Veltar's crystal form flickered with interest. What do we know about their society and government? They appear to be a fractured species, replied Thexakar. The ship's captain claimed to represent something called the United States of America. When pressed, he admitted there were other nations on their world. They are clearly not unified under a single government. The collective speaker made a buzzing sound that indicated confusion. A fractured species achieved space travel? This does not fit our understanding of societal development. Trader Prime Hexlon of the Helix Consortium looked up from his profit calculations. Fractured species often make poor trading partners. Internal conflicts disrupt commerce and create unstable markets. Perhaps, said Morden slowly, we should learn more before making judgments. What did these humans want? Thexkar shifted in his armor. They claimed to be explorers. They said they came in peace and wanted to establish friendly contact. Standard primitive species behavior when encountering superior civilizations. Did you inform them of proper procedures? Asked the luminary delegate, her voice soft and musical. I gave them the standard welcome. I told them they had entered civilized space and must follow council protocols. I instructed them to return to their home system and wait for official contact. And did they comply? Veltar asked. Thexkar paused. They left, but their captain seemed resistant to authority. He asked many questions about our government structure and territorial claims. Prime Calculator Zexon's device beeped with new data. I have been monitoring their home system since the encounter. There has been significant activity. Multiple ships have been launched from their world and their colonies. Colonies? Several council members asked at once. Yes. These humans have established settlements on at least 4 worlds in their system, plus numerous space stations and mining operations. Their industrial capacity appears more significant than initially assessed. The council chamber fell quiet. Most species took centuries to establish even one successful colony. The fact that humans had multiple settlements suggested a level of organization and technology that contradicted their primitive appearance. Trader Prime Hexalon looked interested for the first time. Industrial capacity means trade opportunities. Perhaps we should reconsider their value as potential partners, or potential threats, growled Thexkar. Species that expand quickly often become aggressive. We should establish control before they become a problem. Ancient Keeper Morden raised one withered hand. Perhaps we should invite them to send a delegation. Standard diplomatic protocol for new species contact. I agree, said Veltar. We should evaluate them properly before making any decisions about membership or status. The vote was quick and unanimous. The humans would be invited to send representatives to Nexus Prime for formal evaluation. What none of the council members knew was that the humans had been monitoring their communications from the moment Captain Morrison returned to Earth space. Back on Earth, Admiral Patricia Wells stood in the Situation Room deep beneath the Pentagon, watching data streams from a dozen different sources. The quantum communication array that kept the human fleet connected across vast distances was working overtime, gathering intelligence on their new alien neighbors. What do we know about their government structure? Asked President Robert Clark, who had flown to Washington the moment news of first contact reached him. It's called the Galactic Council, replied Dr. Helen Brooks, the State Department's top xenopolitics expert. 7 major species, each with different strengths and specialties. They've maintained peace for over 3,000 years through a careful balance of power. And they want to evaluate us? The president asked. Standard procedure, apparently. New species get probationary membership if they meet certain criteria. The problem is, from what we can tell, probationary members are essentially junior partners with limited rights. General Frank Thompson, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, looked up from his intelligence reports. Mr. President, our analysis suggests these aliens underestimate us significantly. They think we're primitive because our technology looks different from theirs. Are we primitive compared to them? Clark asked. In some ways, yes. Their energy weapons and shield technology are more advanced, but we have advantages they don't seem to recognize. Our manufacturing capacity, our adaptability, our military doctrine based on independent action rather than centralized control. Admiral Wells added, more importantly, they seem to assume that all species follow the same development pattern. They can't imagine that we might have found different solutions to the same problems. Dr. Brooks nodded. Their entire system is based on the idea that older species are automatically more advanced. They've never encountered a species like ours that developed rapidly through conflict and competition. So what do you recommend? President Clark asked. We send a delegation, Brooks replied, but we send it on our terms, not theirs. We show them that we're not some primitive species looking for guidance. We're a mature civilization ready for equal partnership. And if they don't accept equal partnership? General Thompson asked. Admiral Wells smiled grimly. Then we show them why the United States has never accepted being anyone's junior partner. The UES Constitution launched from Earth orbit 2 weeks later. Unlike the small exploration vessel Liberty, the Constitution was a heavy cruiser designed for long-range missions in potentially hostile space. Her crew of 300 included some of humanity's best diplomats, scientists, and soldiers. Captain Randy Mitchell stood on his bridge, watching Nexus Prime grow larger on the main screen. The alien space station was impressive, easily 50 times larger than anything humans had built. But Mitchell had fought in 3 colonial wars and commanded ships in the asteroid belt conflicts. He knew that size wasn't everything in space combat. Impressive engineering, commented his first officer, Commander Beth Garcia, as they approached the docking bay. Impressive target, replied Lieutenant Colonel Steve Barnes, the ship's Marine commander. Something that big has to have weak points. Ambassador. Helen Brooks, who had been listening to the exchange, turned to face the military officers. Gentlemen, we're here for diplomacy, not reconnaissance. Ma'am, Barnes replied respectfully. In my experience, good diplomacy requires understanding what you're dealing with. These aliens have been in charge for 3,000 years. They're not used to being challenged. And we're Americans, added Captain Mitchell. We don't like being told what to do by people who think they're better than us. Dr. Kate Sullivan, the mission's chief scientist, looked up from her instruments. The energy readings from this station are incredible. Their power generation exceeds our most optimistic projections. But the design is inefficient. They're using brute force solutions where we would use elegant engineering. Meaning? Brooks asked. Meaning they're powerful, but they might not be as smart as they think they are. The Constitution docked without incident, and the human delegation was escorted through corridors filled with aliens they had only seen in intelligence reports. The variety of species was impressive, but Brooks noticed something interesting. Despite their different appearances, they all moved and behaved in similar ways. Formal, hierarchical, predictable. The council chamber was designed to impress, and it succeeded. The humans found themselves standing in the center of a vast circular room, surrounded by alien representatives who looked down at them from elevated platforms. Ancient Keeper Morden spoke first. Welcome, humans of Earth. You have been invited to present your species for evaluation and possible membership in the Galactic Council. President Robert Clark stood behind his desk in the Oval Office, looking directly into the camera that would broadcast his message across the galaxy. The quantum transmitter array had been working for 3 days straight, sending the signal to every human settlement from Mars to the outer colonies. But more importantly, it was broadcasting on frequencies that the Galactic Council would intercept. My fellow Americans and citizens of Earth, Clark began, his voice steady and clear. 3 days ago, our diplomatic team was insulted by an organization that calls itself the Galactic Council. They offered us membership in their club, but only as junior partners who would take orders and provide cheap labor. Clark paused, letting his words sink in. Behind him, the American flag hung motionless in the still air of the office. I want to be very clear about our response. The United States of America has never accepted vassalage. We didn't accept it from King George in 1776. We didn't accept it from fascists in the 1940s. We didn't accept it from communists during the Cold War. And we're sure as hell not going to accept it from aliens who think age gives them the right to rule over others. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council members watched the broadcast with growing alarm. No species had ever publicly rejected their authority. More concerning was the tone of the message. This wasn't a primitive species begging for guidance. This was a challenge. Our proposal is simple, Clark continued. Equal membership in the galactic community, with all the rights and responsibilities that come with it. We're willing to contribute, to trade, to share knowledge, and work together for mutual benefit. But we do it as equals, or we don't do it at all. War Prime Thexkar stood up abruptly in the council chamber. This is unacceptable. They must be taught their place in the galactic order. Prime Calculator Zexon was frantically running new calculations. The probability matrices are showing outcomes I've never seen before. Their response patterns don't match any known species behavior. What does that mean? Asked Feltar. It means we can't predict what they'll do next. Every model I run comes back with the same result. Unknown variables. President Clark's broadcast continued. Some of you might be wondering what we can do if these aliens decide to force the issue. Let me show you. The camera feed switched to a view from orbit around Earth. Dozens of ships moved in formation around the planet. But these weren't the same crude vessels the aliens had encountered before. These ships were sleek, powerful, and obviously designed for war. In the past 6 months, American shipyards and factories have been working around the clock. We've analyzed alien technology, reverse-engineered what we could, and improved on what we couldn't. The result is a fleet that combines the best of human engineering with lessons learned from our new galactic neighbors. Admiral Patricia Wells appeared on screen next to the president. Mr. President, our shipyards report that production is ahead of schedule. We now have over 200 vessels ready for deployment, with more launching every week. How do we compare to alien technology? Clark asked. In some areas, they're still ahead of us. Their energy weapons and shield generators are more advanced, but we've found that our kinetic weapons can penetrate their shields, our armor can absorb their energy attacks, and our ships are more maneuverable than anything they've built. The camera returned to President Clark. But this isn't about military strength. This is about respect. We didn't come to the stars to conquer anyone. We came to explore, to learn, to find our place among the other children of the universe. We hoped to find friends. We're disappointed to find bullies instead. The broadcast ended, and the Galactic Council chamber erupted in arguments. The Corvins demanded immediate military action. The Vorthak insisted that negotiation was still possible. The Zephyrians worried about the disruption to galactic peace. The other species took sides or tried to remain neutral. Ancient Keeper Morden raised his hand for silence. Perhaps we should consider their proposal. Equal membership is not without precedent. Not without precedent? Thexkar roared. No species has demanded equal membership without proving themselves first. The order must be maintained. The order is already broken, Morden replied calmly. They have rejected our authority. We can either adapt to this new reality, or we can force a conflict that may not end the way we expect. While the council argued, the first test of human resolve was already underway. 3 Corvin raiders had been sent to attack a human mining operation in the asteroid belt. It was meant to be a simple demonstration of power. Attack the miners, destroy some equipment, and show the humans that resistance would be costly. Captain Ryan Kelly of the destroyer UES Patriot received the distress call while on patrol near Ceres. The mining station was under attack by ships that matched the profiles of Corvin raiders. Kelly had been expecting something like this. The aliens had to respond to President Clark's speech somehow, and military pressure was their most likely choice. Battle stations, Kelly ordered. All hands to combat positions. The Patriot was one of the new ships that Admiral Wells had mentioned in the broadcast. Built in the orbital shipyards around Mars, it incorporated everything humans had learned about alien technology. The ship's armor was designed to absorb energy weapons fire, its shields could deflect particle beams, and its kinetic weapons could punch through alien hull materials like paper. "Captain, we're detecting 3 Corvin raiders attacking the mining station," reported Lieutenant Jennifer Cole from the sensor station. "The station's shields are holding, but they won't last much longer." "What's our tactical situation?" Kelly asked. 3 ships, roughly the same size as us. They're concentrating their fire on the mining station and don't seem to have noticed us yet." Commander Paul Martinez, Kelly's first officer, looked at the tactical display. "Sir, if we attack now, we'll have the element of surprise. But once they know we're here, it's 3 against 1. Kelly smiled grimly. "Paul, those aliens are about to learn the difference between fighting civilians and fighting the United States Navy. Weapons officer, lock onto the lead raider and prepare to fire." Lieutenant Brad Wilson's hands moved over his controls. "Kinetic cannon loaded and ready, sir. Target locked. Fire." The Patriot's main gun sent a solid metal projectile toward the Corvin raider at a significant fraction of the speed of light. The alien ship's shields, designed to stop energy weapons, barely slowed the kinetic round. The projectile punched through the hull and exploded inside the ship. "Direct hit," Wilson reported. "The target is breaking apart." The other 2 Corvin ships turned toward the Patriot, their weapons charging, but Kelly was already moving. Evasive maneuvers. Return. Fire with all weapons. The Patriot danced through space, avoiding the alien energy beams while its guns spoke again and again. Human tactics, developed through centuries of naval warfare, proved devastatingly effective in space combat. The ship never stayed in one place long enough for the aliens to get a solid target lock. The second Corvin raider died when the Patriot's missiles found its engine compartment. The third tried to run, but Kelly wasn't finished. "Sir, the remaining raider is trying to escape," Martinez reported. "Not today," Kelly replied. "Wilson, target their engines. I want them alive but helpless." The final shots were precise and surgical. The Corvin raider found itself drifting in space, its engines destroyed, but its crew alive. "Open a channel to the disabled ship," Kelly ordered. "Channel open, sir." "Corvin vessel, this is Captain Kelly of the UES Patriot. You attacked civilian targets in American space. That was a mistake. Your ship is disabled and your weapons are offline. You will surrender immediately or be destroyed." The response came in broken English. "We surrender. Do not destroy us." Kelly looked around his bridge. The entire engagement had lasted 17 minutes. 3 alien warships had been neutralized with no human casualties. "Martinez, send a message to Fleet Command. Tell them the test results are in. American tactics work just fine against alien technology." News of the battle spread quickly through both human and alien communication networks. On Earth, the victory was celebrated in every major city. Americans gathered in Times Square, on the National Mall, and in public squares across the country. The message was clear. Earth would not be pushed around by alien bullies. In the Galactic Council chambers, the mood was very different. War Prime Thexkar stared at the reports in disbelief. 3 of his best raiders had been defeated by a single human ship. The implications were staggering. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Their technology is primitive. Their ships are smaller than ours." Prime Calculator Zexon looked up from his analysis. "Their tactics are unlike anything in our databases. They don't fight the way civilized species fight. They use unpredictable movement patterns, concentrate fire on specific targets, and seem to accept higher risk levels than any known species. They fight like barbarians," Thexkar growled. "No," Morden said quietly. "They fight like warriors. There's a difference." Veltar's crystal form flickered with concern. "If one human ship can defeat 3 Corvin raiders, what happens if they decide to go on the offensive?" "They won't," Thexkar declared. "They're too small, too weak. They have one system and a few dozen ships." War Prime Thexkar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the massive dreadnought called Death's Edge, and watched as 300 Corvin warships moved into formation around him. It was the largest battle fleet assembled in over 5 centuries. Each ship was 3 times the size of the largest human vessel. Each carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon, Together they represented the ultimate expression of Corvan military might. "All ships report ready for battle," announced his second-in-command, War Captain Vextar. "The fleet is prepared to jump to the human home system." Vextar nodded grimly. "These humans will learn what happens when primitives challenge the galactic order. After we crush their pathetic fleet, we will occupy their worlds and teach them proper submission." The Corvan fleet entered hyperspace, confident in their overwhelming superiority. They expected to arrive at Earth and find a small defensive force that would either surrender immediately or be destroyed within hours. What they found instead would haunt Corvan military doctrine for generations. Admiral Jake Morrison, promoted after his first contact mission, stood in the command center of the UES Defiance, humanity's new flagship. Around him, the most advanced human warship ever built hummed with quiet efficiency. The ship was half the size of the Corvan dreadnought, but it carried technology that no alien species had ever seen before. "Admiral, long-range sensors are detecting the Corvan fleet," reported Captain Lisa Hayes, now serving as Morrison's fleet operations officer. 300 ships, just like our intelligence predicted." Morrison studied the tactical display. The human fleet numbered only 67 ships, but each one had been designed specifically to fight this battle. Months of analysis had revealed the weaknesses in alien ship design. Human engineers had built vessels that could exploit every one of those weaknesses. "Lisa, signal all ships. Execute Battle Plan Alpha. It's time to show these aliens how Americans fight." The battle began with the Corvan fleet advancing in traditional formation, expecting the humans to either flee or attempt a conventional defense. Instead, they found themselves facing an enemy that fought like no other species in galactic history. Captain Ryan Kelly, now commanding the heavy cruiser UES Ranger, led the first wave of attacks. His squadron of destroyers appeared out of nowhere, struck at the Corvan flanks and disappeared before the aliens could coordinate return fire. "All ships concentrate fire on their engine sections," Kelly ordered. "Remember, we're not trying to destroy them all. We're trying to disable their ability to maneuver." Lieutenant Ben Cooper, Kelly's tactical officer, coordinated the strikes with computer-like precision. "Sir, we've disabled the engines on 12 enemy ships. They're falling out of formation." The Corvan fleet commanders were confused. This wasn't how space battles were supposed to work. Fleets were supposed to line up and trade fire until one side was defeated. The humans kept appearing, attacking, and vanishing before proper battle lines could be formed. "What are they doing?" demanded War Captain Vextar. "This is not civilized warfare." "They're fighting to win," Vextar replied grimly. "Signal all ships, break formation and engage independently." But breaking formation only made things worse for the Corvans. Human ships worked in small groups, supporting each other but never relying on centralized command that could be disrupted. When the alien fleet scattered, the humans simply adapted their tactics. Dr. Amy Carter, now serving aboard the science vessel UES Explorer, had developed new weapons based on her analysis of alien technology. Her electromagnetic pulse weapons could disable Corvan shields long enough for human kinetic weapons to penetrate their armor. "Carter to all ships," she broadcast on the fleet command frequency. "EMP charges are ready. Firing in 3, 2, 1, mark." Across the battlefield, dozens of Corvan ships suddenly found their shields flickering and failing. Human gunners, trained to exploit exactly this kind of opportunity, sent solid metal projectiles racing toward their targets at incredible speeds. Chief Engineer Danny Rodriguez, now serving as Chief of Fleet Engineering, had modified every human ship with backup systems that could continue fighting even after taking damage that would cripple alien vessels. His engineering teams had built ships that were designed to take punishment and keep fighting. "Damage report from the Patriot," Rodriguez announced from his position in the Fleet Command Center. "They've lost main power and primary weapons, but secondary systems are keeping them in the fight. Tell Captain Mitchell to fall back and effect repairs," Morrison ordered. "The Defender and the Justice will cover his withdrawal." The battle raged for hours. Human ships darted in and out of the Corvan formation like sharks attacking a whale. They never stayed in one place long enough to be targeted by the massive alien weapons but they struck again and again at vulnerable points. Captain Randy Mitchell, commanding the battleship UES Justice, led the final assault on the Corvin flagship. His ship had taken significant damage, but her crew was still fighting with the stubborn determination that had carried Americans through every major conflict in their history. "Sir, we're getting close to the enemy flagship," reported his weapons officer. "Their shields are down and their weapons are offline. Prepare boarding parties," Mitchell ordered. "We're going to end this the old-fashioned way." Lieutenant Colonel Steve Barnes had been waiting for this moment. His Marines were the best-trained fighting force in human space, equipped with armor and weapons designed specifically for ship-to-ship combat. They had studied Corvin biology and tactics for months, preparing for exactly this kind of close-quarters battle. "Marines, remember your training," Barnes announced over the comm system. "These aliens are strong and tough, but they've never faced opponents who fight like we do. Show them what American Marines can accomplish." The boarding action was brutal and decisive. Human Marines fought with a combination of advanced technology and savage determination that shocked the Corvin warriors. They moved through the alien ship's corridors like a force of nature, overwhelming defensive positions with tactics that no civilized species would consider using. Within 2 hours, the Marines had captured the bridge of the Corvin flagship. War Prime Thexkar found himself facing Lieutenant Colonel Barnes across his own command center, his officers disarmed and under guard. "You fight like demons," Thexkar said, his voice filled with a mixture of admiration and horror. "No civilized species wages war with such ferocity." "We're not demons," Barnes replied calmly. "We're Americans, and we don't lose wars when our freedom is at stake." The surrender of the flagship signaled the end of the battle. Across the solar system, Corvin ships were throwing down their weapons and requesting terms. The mighty fleet that had come to crush humanity lay broken and defeated around the wreckage of their own overconfidence. Admiral Morrison's final transmission to the Corvin fleet was broadcast throughout the galaxy. "War Prime Thexkar, your fleet is defeated, and your ships are disabled. We could destroy you all, but that's not who we are. We offer you the same terms you should have offered us from the beginning. Surrender with honor, and we'll treat you with respect." The war that was supposed to last days and end with human submission was over in less than 12 hours. The Corvin Empire, which had maintained military supremacy for over 1,000 years, had been decisively defeated by a species that had barely learned to travel between stars. The implications rippled across the galaxy like a shockwave. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council watched the battle reports with growing amazement and fear. The humans hadn't just won. They had won so completely that the entire balance of galactic power had shifted in a single day. "How is this possible?" demanded Veltar. "The Corvins had overwhelming numerical superiority." Prime Calculator Zexon looked up from his analysis, his normal confidence shattered. "The humans don't fight like any species in our databases. They use tactics that prioritize effectiveness over tradition. They build ships designed for war, not ceremony. And they fight with a level of coordination and determination that suggests extensive military experience." "But they're a young species," protested the collective speaker. "How can they be so experienced in warfare?" Ancient Keeper Mordun spoke for the first time since the battle began. "Perhaps because they have been fighting wars among themselves for their entire history. While we maintained peace through hierarchy and tradition, they learned to fight through necessity and survival." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans weren't just militarily powerful. They were experienced warriors who had perfected the art of war through constant practice. They had brought the skills of 1,000 human conflicts to bear against an enemy that had grown soft through centuries of unchallenged dominance. "What happens now?" asked the Luminary delegate. Morden looked at the tactical displays showing the aftermath of the battle. Human ships were already assisting with rescue operations, pulling Corvin survivors from damaged vessels and providing medical aid to the wounded. "Now we learn what these humans truly want," he said. "They have proven they can fight. Let us see if they can also show mercy." On the bridge of the Defiance, Admiral Morrison was already planning the next phase of human expansion into galactic space. The victory had been decisive, but it was only the beginning. The Great Council Chamber of Nexus Prime had never seen a gathering like this one. For the first time in 3,000 years, the 7 founding species of the Galactic Council were not the only voices that mattered. Ambassador Helen Brooks sat at a table that had been hastily added to the center of the chamber, representing not just Earth but a new kind of power in the galaxy. Around her, the alien representatives struggled to process what had happened. The Corvan Empire, the galaxy's premier military force, had been utterly defeated by a species that most of them had dismissed as primitive just months before. The balance of power that had kept peace for millennia was gone, replaced by something none of them understood. Ancient Keeper Morden spoke first, his ancient voice carrying across the silent chamber. Ambassador Brooks, your species has proven its military capabilities beyond any doubt. The question now is what you intend to do with that power. Brooks looked around the chamber, studying each alien representative carefully. She had spent months preparing for this moment, learning about each species and their role in galactic politics. Now she had to convince them that humanity wanted to be a partner, not a conqueror. Honorable Council members, she began, my government has authorized me to make a proposal that we believe will benefit all species in this galaxy. We're not here to replace your system. We're here to improve it. War Prime Thexkar, who had been released from human custody after agreeing to a ceasefire, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The defeat of his fleet had cost him most of his political power, but he was still the official Corvan representative until a replacement could be chosen. You speak of improvement, he said, but you achieved your victory through methods that no civilized species would use. Your tactics were brutal and without honor. Brooks smiled slightly. War Prime, with respect, we won because we fought to win, not to maintain tradition. Our tactics were effective because we adapted them to the situation rather than following ancient rules that no longer applied. Prime Calculator Zexin looked up from his computing device. Our analysis of the battle confirms that human tactical doctrine is unlike anything in our databases. You fight as if every engagement could determine the survival of your species. Because that's exactly how we've always fought, Brooks replied. On Earth, we learned long ago that freedom must be defended by those who value it. We've fought wars against tyrants, against oppression, and against anyone who believed that might makes right. Veltar's crystal form flickered with what might have been curiosity. Yet you showed mercy to your defeated enemies. This seems inconsistent with your aggressive nature. It's not inconsistent at all, Brooks explained. Americans fight fiercely when we have to, but we don't fight to destroy our enemies. We fight to protect our way of life and to defend those who can't defend themselves. Once the fighting stops, we're ready to help rebuild and move forward. The collective speaker made the buzzing sound that indicated confusion. Your individual-based society should not be capable of the coordination we observed during the battle. How do you achieve unity without a central controlling mind? Brooks had been expecting this question. We achieve unity through shared values, not through control. Every human in our fleet was fighting for the same thing, the right to be free, and equal citizens of the galaxy. When people fight for something they believe in, rather than because they're ordered to, they fight harder and smarter. Trader Prime Hexalon of the Helix Consortium looked up from his profit calculations with obvious interest. Your industrial capacity exceeds our projections by a factor of 3. How did you achieve such rapid expansion? Competition and innovation, Brooks answered. On Earth, our greatest advances have come from companies and nations competing with each other to build better products and find better solutions. When everyone is trying to be the best, the whole species benefits. Ancient Keeper Morden raised one withered hand. You speak of competition and conflict as positive forces. This contradicts everything we have learned about maintaining galactic peace. Brooks stood up, looking directly at each council member in turn. Honorable Keeper, with the greatest respect, your galactic peace was built on stagnation. For 3,000 years, nothing has really changed. The same species have held the same positions, using the same technologies, following the same rules. You achieved stability, but you gave up progress. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Several council members spoke at once. their translators, struggling to keep up with the overlapping conversations. The idea that their perfect system might be flawed was more shocking than the military defeat had been. Brooks waited for the noise to die down before continuing. "We're not saying your system was wrong. It maintained peace and prevented wars for longer than our entire recorded history, but it also prevented growth, innovation, and the kind of progress that comes from new ideas challenging old assumptions." The luminary delegate, who had remained silent until now, spoke in her soft musical voice. "What exactly are you proposing, Ambassador?" "A new kind of council," Brooks replied. "One where membership is based on contribution rather than age. Where new ideas are welcomed instead of discouraged. Where competition drives innovation instead of being seen as a threat to stability." "And if we refuse?" asked Veltar. Brooks smiled, but there was steel in her expression. "Then we'll build our own alliance. There are dozens of species in this galaxy that have been denied membership in your council because they're too young or too small. We'll offer them the partnership you've refused to provide." Prime Calculator Zexon's device beeped urgently. "My analysis shows that such an alliance could control 30% of the galaxy's industrial capacity within a decade. The economic implications would be devastating to your current system," Brooks finished. "We'd prefer to work with you, but we're perfectly capable of working without you." The silence that followed was broken by an unexpected voice. "War Prime." Thexkar stood up slowly, his armor scarred from the recent battle. "I have spent my life believing that military might was the ultimate expression of a species' worth," he said, his voice heavy with something that might have been regret. "The humans have shown me that I was wrong. They defeated my fleet not through superior firepower but through superior thinking. Perhaps it is time for new thinking in all aspects of galactic governance." Ancient Keeper Morden studied the human ambassador for a long moment. "You ask us to abandon 3,000 years of tradition and stability for an uncertain future. I'm asking you to choose growth over stagnation," Brooks replied. "To choose progress over comfort. To choose the chance of something better over the certainty of staying the same." The Elderkin representative was quiet for several minutes, his ancient mind processing implications that stretched across centuries. Finally, he spoke. "The humans are correct. Our system has maintained peace, but it has also prevented progress. Perhaps the time has come to try a new approach." The vote that followed was closer than anyone expected. The Elderkin, surprisingly, voted to accept the human proposal. The Luminari and the Helix Consortium joined them, seeing opportunity in change. The collective voted against, preferring the stability of the old system. The Zephyrians abstained, unsure which path was better. The deciding votes came from an unexpected source. War Prime Thexkar cast the Corvin vote in favor of the new system, and the Vorthak, after running countless probability analyses, concluded that adaptation was preferable to extinction. The Galactic Council was restructured that day. For the first time in 3 millennia, new species were invited to join as equal members. The humans took their place not as junior partners, but as full participants in galactic governance. President Robert Clark's final address to the United Nations captured the moment perfectly. 6 months ago, we were alone in the universe. Today, we're equal partners in a galactic community that spans thousands of worlds and dozens of species. We didn't achieve this by being the strongest or the smartest. We achieved it by being willing to fight for our principles and to extend a hand in friendship once the fighting was over. Admiral Morrison, now serving as Earth's first galactic fleet commander, established the principles that would guide human expansion into the galaxy. We explore, we defend, we trade, but we never conquer. We came to the stars to find our place among them, not to rule them. Dr. Amy Carter, whose research had helped win the war, founded the Institute for Galactic Studies. Her work in understanding alien biology and psychology became the foundation for peaceful cooperation between species that had been enemies just months before. The new Galactic Council faced challenges that the old system could never have handled. Trade disputes between species with fundamentally different economic systems, territorial conflicts over resource-rich worlds, the integration of dozens of new member species, each with their own needs and capabilities. But they also achieved things that would have been impossible under the old system. Joint research projects that advanced the science of every participating species. Cultural exchanges that enriched the lives of billions of beings. Economic cooperation that lifted entire civilizations out of poverty and isolation.